Hey there, Libra. It's Jen here. I'm doing your mid-April reading. Um, so just a reminder that we have full moon in Scorpio on April 27th. So, Scorpio is all about, Scorpio is very complex. It's a water sign, so they're sort of, quote unquote, ruled by their emotions. It doesn't mean by any means Scorpios are, sort of out of control. That would be the more negative side. But being a water sign, their emotions are sort of how they tend to make decisions and to sort of lead, is how they're led, versus Libra, an air sign that is led more by facts and their mind, is maybe a little more detached from their feelings, just but by nature of it just is their style. It's just more comfortable for Libra to use their mind and think things out. Again, this doesn't mean that Scorpios don't use their mind or Libras don't listen to their emotions, but it just tends to be the more dominant thing that they use to when they're trying to make a decision. For example, a Scorpio will go with what feels right a little bit more, and the Libra will go with what makes the most logical sense to them. We just had two come out here, so. But anyway, so that Scorpio full moon can bring up a lot of, Scorpio's still waters run deep. It's Scorpio, for fuck's sake, I'm not nimble enough apparently to use these little things. Scorpios there's a lot going on under the surface, and they sort of obsess about things and can really, they're controlling. They're the fixed water sign. So this can bring up a lot of feelings you've kept really way down can bubble up to the surface. It can even bring up sort of resentment or things you really didn't realize you were still hanging on to, I guess, is what I'm getting at there. So that's on April 27th. But think about how cleansing and having a release and bringing those things up that you didn't even realize subconsciously was bothering you or influencing the situation. So you gain like this whole new perspective, and then being able to release them. You may have emotionally not been feeling well, but haven't been able to figure it out. And this will allow you to examine it and release it and get rid of sort of that, I don't know, underlying feeling that, something's kind of bothering me. So this seems like it might be more work-related, but not necessarily. But I see some of you stopping and realizing that you need a different strategy to convey your ideas, your thoughts, or your point of view. So maybe you created a whole document, a Word document, and now you're realizing that you may need some visuals. Somehow create a way for people to experience or see what you're talking about. So graphics, video, flowchart, simulation in some way, in order to really get them to understand. I took the Myers-Briggs personality type, and they broke us up into groups, or the extroverts on one side and the introverts on the other. And they had 4 groups, and they were talking about presenting a new policy or project or whatever, something new they had to implement. And all the extroverts were like, let's just go to the meeting, give me a high level of what's going on, I need to see the big picture. I need to understand the scope of this. And then in my own time, I will drill down into the details. Like, you don't need to give me the whole document ahead of time. I'm not going to look at it if you do. The introverts did not want anything sprung on them. They didn't find any sort of creative joy or interest in hearing something for the first time. They felt like they were being, I don't know if it's surprised, but yeah, kind of something was just being dropped on them, and it, it didn't feel good to them. They wanted that whole detailed document well ahead of time so they could study it and get down into all the details before they went to a meeting, to just like an introductory meeting. And that was really mind-blowing for me, because I'm on the more extrovert. I'm barely an extrovert, but definitely I'm a big picture thinker. Like, I get lost in a whole bunch of details. Like, I need to understand the framework and the reason and the big picture, and then I will drill down. So that was so eye-opening to me, that of how people are just different. And there's value to having diversity, whether it's of all kinds, learning styles, as well as just cultural differences. There's strong evidence that things like that are beneficial, all those different points of view. But it can be hard to work with someone who's kind of your polar opposite. And so whether this is work or relationships, you really have to think about, work, it's one thing where you're all have a goal and the different input. I don't know about in personal life. It's interesting to think about, do you want someone constantly challenging you, or vice versa, on your true just nature? And it doesn't mean if you have like if your behavior's unacceptable or something like that, but just fundamental differences in how you do things and approach things day in and day out. I don't think we really think about those things enough, because there are some basic incompatibilities that can really, like it was Deborah Silverman, the astrologer. She says people always ask her, like, okay, what signs are best together? And she says, you always hear opposites attract, but it's the ones that are most similar that actually do the best. Because what is novel and interesting, the opposites attract thing, becomes really annoying and gets on their nerves, because that's why they're not that way, because it's not in their nature. Then she also said that someone with a sun or rising, I can't remember, that is your moon sign or similar to your moon sign. So you have the same emotional similarities. I mean, I know astrology isn't real, but it's interesting to think about in ways like that. It just helps your mind to think. So appreciating that not everyone learns or thinks the same way. Pisces just had that in the exact same position. Two of Wands. Yeah, the Two of Wands is like, where do I want to focus my time and energy? I only have a king of a water sign and an earth sign. So water and earth are the feminine signs of the four elements. So that energy does tend to be harmonious. Of course, it in no way means a fire sign and a water sign, or a earth sign and an air sign, or whatever can't be compatible. There's, people are infinitely more complex than these stereotypes we use to talk about these things, but it is a more harmonious in theory match to have a water sign and an earth sign. But these are both mature energies, and that's a really important thing, because And maturity, I've realized, has very little to do, well, I can't talk, very little to do with how old someone is. There are some of those, I think we call them old souls, that just seem to have this wisdom and their shit together, at a very young age. And there are, plenty of older people that are still, very struggle with their demons and just, have a harder time and just haven't gained that wisdom or have trouble putting experiences in ways where they're going on with wisdom and enlightenment and an understanding, just in a self-awareness, and can use that to change and grow. And some people just sort of stay stuck, right? Stuck in one place. But the Two of Wands, going back over to the beginning here, the Two of Wands, we're humans. We have to sleep. We only have a finite amount of energy. So the Two of Wands is like, okay, you have two things. Let's pick one. You think about, okay, what is the time and energy investment I'm putting into this one thing? And what is that giving back to me? Am I gaining? Am I getting things back for that output of energy or not? Or is it just sucking energy from me? Versus the other thing, same thing. Maybe neither of them are really beneficial. And of course, not everything's black and white and all good or all bad, but you have to think, you're trying to think about, this could be in work, this could be in anything. It's okay, where do I need to, it's like I need to sort of focus my energy a little bit more on one thing, and it would make sense to focus on the thing that's benefiting you more, that's making you happier or feeding your soul or being more successful at work, or is the priority, things like that. So the Ace of Swords, this is a new way of thinking. It can be a new idea, the seed of a new idea, getting really clear on what's important. So I feel like the Ace of Swords cuts away sort of that Scorpio emotion we were talking about with that full moon. Lots of just emotional energy that isn't necessarily productive in and of itself, and how to channel that and how to cut away the stuff that is just kind of background noise and laser focus on what's really, really important. When the Ace of Swords comes out, it's like, I've probably told this story before, but I worked in oncology for a long, long time. And we have these things called tumor boards. And what it is all the doctors and nurses and social workers and everyone that is going to be involved in the care of this patient comes together on at least a weekly basis, mostly, and discusses the patients. And just because cancer isn't like, oh, we just do this and it's cured and end of story. There's still tons of research. We're still learning. And sometimes they get into this discussion, and the literature says this, but this study says this, and they kind of, there is no clear-cut answer. So things can get kind of really, there's a lot of discussion but there's no real clear-cut way. And there's sort of this magical moment when one of the docs usually will speak up and say, if this was my husband, father, son, wife, whatever, this is what I would do. And it always seems to be like everyone just kind of releases this breath, and it's like, yeah, okay. We've thought about all the evidence, but this is what makes sense. It's like that bottom line. Like, how do we just get to what's most important? Of course, it's always the patient's decision what they want to do. But so yeah, focusing your energy, figuring out what's very, very important. And these two, this couple over here, don't get hung up on gender. They're mature. They're the mature of the court cards and their signs. So they don't. So for the water sign, they're not ruled by their emotions. They're not prone to have emotional swings and to be happy and sad, and like they're very in touch with their emotions. They can communicate their emotions, but they're not emotional to the point where it makes them a bit difficult to be around. The Queen of Pentacles, so this is a grounded energy. This is the pentacles they're of earthy things, they're material things, they're the home, but their essence takes a house, which is just building material, and infuses it with what it feels like, I'm getting the chills, to be home. And when you come home, you want to come home is a place that's safe and comfortable and supportive, and you can relax, and there's it's not tense, or you know what I mean. It's a refuge. It's a safe place, and that's sort of the magical quality that this Queen of Pentacles brings to situations. She's also an extremely good manager, extremely capable, can run things. She's very organized. But it's all sort of, this is so silly, but you know how they say, what is it? When, the secret ingredients to these cookies is love. Like there's always, a kindness or something there, quality. I don't know. All right. So those are your messages. I hope you have a great rest of April. Take care.